Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Darcy Glidden from the awards jury from the OLA Building Awards. And I'm here with John Chenier from Cohen Chenier Architects and Donald Ainsley from University College at the University of Toronto, one of the 2021 winners for the complete fantastic transformation of the University College Library. This one was unanimous by the jury and gushing praise. It's phenomenal what you've done with this project. We'll jump right into it because we want to keep this fairly tight at 15 minutes. So I'll ask the first question. What was the intent of the building project? And then the second part of that is, what do you think was outstanding or unique about your project?
Why don't I start with that one? So I was principal of University College from 2011 to 2019. And when I started my term as principal, one of the things I realized is our greatest asset as a college was this incredible building. You can see sort of an image of it in a painting behind me, a mid-19th century classic building, National Historic Site. But as you walked around the building, it was clear that a lot of the spaces weren't being used very effectively. Many of the glorious historical rooms sat empty most of the time, and it wasn't serving our student population. So we set about a process of thinking through what it would be to revitalize the building. We had four principles that were guiding us in this approach. One is that it had to forefront the undergraduate experience because University College is a focus for undergraduates at the University of Toronto. Another is that it had to embody University College special place in the University of Toronto campus, at the very center of campus, the iconic building of the University of Toronto. And you'll notice if you ever see stories about universities in Canada, often it's a picture of University College that's used to illustrate it. It's really a special building that's really in the hearts of all its students, faculty, staff, alumni. A third principle was accessibility. So University College was created to be the college that was for everyone. It was a non-religious college at a time when most colleges had religious affiliations. We keep recognizing what accessibility means and openness as we've gone through the years. And we realized that this building was not, the way it was designed, very friendly to people who couldn't negotiate stairs very easily for one reason or another. There were a lot of level changes, sometimes just one step, sometimes several, and it wasn't a very accessible building at all. And finally, heritage, obviously National Historic Site, core historic building in the city and the country. And so we really wanted to honor that heritage.
Thanks a lot, Donald. And I would just acknowledge that it really was a kind of focused commitment from Donald and his team at University College, as well as I think our project manager at the end of the day, Carla for U of T, who really believed in this project and pushed it through because the challenges were many. I mean, outlining, just kind of even reviewing the 4 points that were given to us as being important. The thing about it is that they reveal a paradox right from the beginning, because on one hand, as you know, Darcy, looking at all kinds of libraries that are submitted to your program and experiencing libraries as a librarian yourself over the years, we're in an age where the library itself is undergoing a transformation, even to the point where you now have libraries that identify themselves as libraries without books. Libraries that they still have this core function to bring their constituency together in a place of kind of purposeful, let's say, study, contemplation, and experience. But the idea of the silent hierarchical library, of kind of deep book learning, of the kind of individual in hushed concentration is a kind of an idea which isn't used moving forward. The technology that's required in libraries now to make them seamless in terms of digital use, collaborative use, and accessibility, these are forefront issues. The technologies in building science to make spaces healthy and comfortable, to make them well lit, to make them flexible, to make them transformable. All of those things work when you're building from the ground up. But when you're building in a century-old building with kind of thick stone walls and thick masonry walls, no hollow spaces in them, it is really difficult to kind of retrofit these ideas to make these systems invisible. And as Donald said, accessibility was a kind of a key condition.
So number two, what were some of the biggest challenges, and you've touched on this, what were some of the biggest challenges faced during this project, and how were they resolved, and what lessons were learned?
Well, I think I'll just follow up with the elevator shaft as an example. I think simply addressing heritage was one of the two, I would say, biggest challenges. And I would say that, speaking of the elevator, Darcy, probably from the outset, had we simply gone in and said, you know what, we're going to put a new elevator in your building, it's going to be visible in the quad, and that's it. We would have been met with an incredible amount of resistance. And I think right through the process until it started actually going up, there were people, and I'm going to say Donald wasn't one of them, but there were people who really were scared that this was going to have a negative impact on the building. And in fact, the kind of early feasibility study was so, I think, committed to the kind of leap of faith that the elevator could be contained within the interior of the building so as not to make an appearance on the outside, that our first big challenge was to demonstrate, one, that wasn't a practical or possible thing to do, which really was kind of a leap of faith, to kind of create a process where we walked through not just Donald and his immediate team, but we walked through the entire faculty council at UC through a series of meetings with questions and answers to make sure that everybody was involved with the reasons why we believed it could not be done as per the feasibility study. And then once we accepted that this was the best place to put it, to kind of work through an iterative process that would allow people to participate in this leap of faith, to kind of, and I think you have to engage people's imaginations to do that, which meant it had to be an iterative process. It couldn't just present a fait accompli. It presented kind of schematic sketches at first. It played with scale, it played with shape. We got feedback, and we incorporated that feedback. We then presented to the design review committee at U of T, which is made up of people, of my esteemed colleagues. They too questioned it. And these are architects who would be the first to kind of put contemporary additions onto historical buildings, and in fact have made great reputations for doing so. And that had to go through a 2 or 3 step process. But once it was sorted out, that we had sufficiently presented the idea through shared imagination, shared collaboration, I think, to get enough people to kind of take that leap of faith with us. Because I have to tell you, as an architect, we have to know things are going to work. But for me, there's nothing more satisfying than actually something exceeding your expectation. So as much as we need to have that kind of security and give that to our client as kind of experts, I always say you have to kind of perform like an expert, but you want to experience like an amateur. You want to be able to take the same pleasure and delight, watch it transform, go back month after month, because even when the panels went up, they were almost orange. They were so bright and copper. And Donald would phone like once a week. Are you sure it's going to change color? Like it's going to get duller. and even to the point where like I wasn't even sure, right? So we had to call the manufacturer. We had to make sure that they used a certain kind of copper, but then all of a sudden it started transforming. And then every day you went back, it looked more beautiful than the day before. The other challenge, Darcy, because I have to mention this, is the whole idea of accessibility in this project. The accessibility pillar was extremely challenging. And for us, the position we took, ideological position we took, was kind of based on the idea of universal design, which is to say that even though we do have proprietary systems to help people navigate the challenges of access in buildings, that at University College, because in its history, innovation and accessibility and diversity was kind of a principle from the beginning, we wanted to make sure that what we did to kind of make the building more accessible was transparent. With careful planning, we could create interior ramping systems, and we transformed stepped corridors into ramped circulation zones. And the whole idea of these ramped zones, again, was to make it look as though they were there all along.
I think what Donald used the phrase spectacular but subtle. And I think all of the design elements you've done for this renovation are spectacular but subtle. So what would your advice be for a library taking on a similar project? Or what has been the reaction of your community to this project? I don't know that there would be a similar project. Again, this is, as Donald said, this is one of the iconic university buildings in North America. No one else may have one that needs work like this, but certainly I think the reaction of your community is very important as well.
Well, the University College community had to get behind the building because the government doesn't give money for these kinds of projects. And so it was entirely funded with donations from our alumni community, lead donors, Ed Clark, Paul Cadario. The students really got behind it, which was an important thing. So the students passed a referendum where they increased their fees to help support the student spaces that are part of this project. And then the university itself got behind it. There was some money put aside by the university to make sure this happened. So that was required to make it happen. And now that it's there, we had scheduled our grand opening for this past fall. Obviously, that didn't happen. So that it's really been a soft opening, as it were, because of the lockdowns and the pandemic. I think everyone is really looking forward to a more official opening when we can gather together again, hopefully in the fall. And the people who've seen it thus far are thrilled. The university community, in particular, is the ones who've seen it the most thus far. All positive raves. Everyone is so happy and excited about seeing students in the space, because I think the students are just going to love these new spaces.
And John, any final words?
Yeah, I would say that yes. One of the main points of view that we took in the project was to really see this as student-driven space. So the opportunities, whether it's shared study areas, communal reading rooms, destination cafe up in one of the most beautiful clear story attic sections of the building, the new views, the overlooks of those buildings that had never existed before, the proximity to the heritage features that you can now talk face to face with the gargoyles, that you can really appreciate the beautiful stained glass windows that were not accessible before, even with the previous mezzanine. I would say these are all things that are driven by experience, not by artifact or object. And I would say that the advice that I would give, and it's not really advice, but I think that the lesson that I think was learned by the community, the stakeholders that really engaged the process, and there were a lot of them, including other architects who were friends of University College, was, rather than going into a building with all of these, with people and institutions' opinions that say, you can't do this, you can't do that, these are the things you can't do, you can't touch this. I would say that my position would be, can we at least for a moment put aside that expression and imagine and say, could you imagine what would happen if we could do this?
Congratulations again on a fantastic project. Universal acclaim from the jury. A well-deserved award.